Yeah. I'm going to talk about a career as an open source developer, which I haven't actually made a career of being an open source developer. Like I don't have agencies throwing money at me left, right, and center. And my wife is here, and she'll tell you we still have a mortgage and things like that. So it's certainly not a get-rich-quick scheme. But I go through kind of a few things that have happened to me recently, or that I've maybe, I suppose, worked towards happening as opposed to have happened to me. And then it might be more of, if there's questions and answers of how you might get people to give you money to basically do your hobby. And if I can help you in that way, I will. So Drupal Camp England actually asked me would I speak about this topic. I didn't actually petition them to say, can I give this presentation? And that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit, I won't say nervous, but a bit kind of apprehensive about it, because it wasn't my idea, let's say. So what they've said is, after leaving my last company to launch a new one, I've navigated the challenges of shaping the work that I want to do on my own terms. But the real question is, how do I get 50% or more of my time funded to work on open source? So that's what they want me to talk about. I'm going to talk around that rather than specifically about that. I might just hang on, if you don't mind, maybe 30 seconds while there's a few people coming in. I'm feeling more apprehensive now because some of the people who would give me money to write open source software have just entered the room. I hope I've given them good value. So I was working with Anertech in Ireland. I was there since 2013, so about 11 years. I see some more Tony and some other Anertech people here, and it's great to see old friends. But after 10 years, 11 years, I kind of came to the conclusion internally that there was three things motivating me to leave Anertech, and I can ream them off very easily. There's three things. One is the things I want to work on. Two is the way I want to work, and then three is, we're never allowed to say this because we just do what we enjoy, and it's never about money. But number three was financial considerations, and I don't think we should shy away from that part. So the things I wanted to work on, I decided to set up my own company, and it's called The Confident. And I wanted to have something, a name that has kind of balls and is a bit confident about things. But really, it's the idea that I'm not willing to take on any work whatsoever unless I'm confident I can do a really, really good job at it. The way I came up with the name was actually, Blur have a cool song called The Universal. And my favorite band is the Manic Street Preachers. And I was reading an interview with the Manic Street Preachers years ago, and they were saying, we love the name The Universal. We want to write a song with something like that kind of a name. So they wrote a song called The Everlasting. I thought, that's pretty cool. If I ever set up a new company, or if I ever in a band or something crazy, I'm going to have this something. What's going to be? And I thought, oh, The Confident. It sounds better than The Arrogant. So that's how the Confident came about. So the things I wanted to work on, one is I want to do more consultancy. I don't necessarily want to be building people's websites. I want to be building teams of people so that they can build their own websites. And I want to be kind of architecting systems as opposed to writing the code that the architect decides we should write. So I set up The Confident, and The Confident does three things basically: Drupal, local gov Drupal, and design systems. Working mostly with local government clients in the UK. And on top of that, then I wanted to build things that are kind of more fixed price. So I want to look at product ideas. And I launched one product called Deny All Cookies. So, you go to any website and there's a button that says manage cookies and deny cookies and reject cookies and accept. And they all say different things, and they pop in from the left, they pop in from the right, they pop up and down. And so I wrote a small little browser, not a browser extension, bookmarklet. And you click on that, no matter what cookie provider is, it'll do its best to find the button that says reject them all, even if it has to find a button that says manage and then find another button that says reject them all on a different form. So I set that up a couple of months ago, and it had its first sale last week. So I have now made €9. what I'll probably do, I was hoping wouldn't get that sale last week because I was going to just make it free at this stage. It looks like people don't want to pay for it, and it's actually a pretty cool little widget. But now someone has paid for it, so I think I should leave it at least for a month or two, and I'll make it free after that. Then I have a service called Available Drupal Developers. This was a kind of some recruitment agency asked me, do I know anyone that's available? And I said, actually Paul here. I said, Paul's available. And somebody else was. And I was out for a walk that evening, and I was like, who else is available? And I, hang on, why the hell am I doing some recruiter's job for him, and he's going to charge 15,000 euros or something for whoever gets hired? Why don't I start charging these recruitment agencies instead? So now I've got a few Drupal agencies, not recruitment agencies, that come to me and say, hey, Mark, we're looking for Drupal developers. Who do you know is available? And I can say, well, I know this person, and I know them from here, and I notice how good they are. And I vet all that part of it for them, and I charge a fixed price of 1,500 euros, about 10% of what a recruitment agency would charge. And so far, so good. I've had 7 sales. So that's kind of, that's doing okay. And then my next thing I'm looking at is a Drupal front-end course. I don't want to give everyone these great ideas, and you'll go off and do it on me, and I'll be a poor person. Ruth will still have to pay the mortgage. But there doesn't seem to be a Drupal front-end course. So I have the idea of a course called, the name might need to be refined a bit, but become a Drupal front-end expert in under 2 hours, or at least learn enough to get by. So it's I don't know if the title needs to be worked on. Anyway, that's that. And then I want to launch a podcast. I have an idea for a podcast. I can't tell you the exact idea now because there are other people concerned that I need to run it by them first. But Finn here is going to be helping me with that, or even leading it. You can probably guess the general ballpark we'll be in with that podcast. And then getting on to the topic of today, open source development. So I get paid by people to write open source code. So if you want to be an open source developer, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, I'm going to be an open source developer, people are going to pay me. Nobody is going to pay you if that's going to be the attitude. You've got to put a lot of work in, at least in my experience, you've got to put a lot of work in through the years to eventually be able to say to people, I'm good enough at this, or people trust me enough at this, or sponsoring me is good enough for your company that when you go for a tender to say that I sponsor Mark Conroy or I sponsor some other Drupal core developer. So with me, with Drupal, I started in 2008. In 2013, I started working on the Umami installation profile, so the out-of-the-box experience, it was called at the time. I wrote most of the Drupal team, the Umami team for Drupal, and some of the Umami installation. I wrote lots of blogs. I spoke at DrupalCon Dublin, Vienna. Where was after that? Every DrupalCon I went to since 2016, I spoke at those. Put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into that. I wrote a blog post there about 2 weeks ago called Be the Best in the World. And again, this is part of the confident as opposed to part of the arrogant. But find something that you are the best at. For me, I think I'm the best in the world at the front end of local gov Drupal. I wrote almost the whole of the front end system, and the parts I didn't write, Maria wrote, and the parts I did write, Maria tested and verified. So Maria, you're second best in the world at this. Maria is best in the world at local gov Drupal accessibility, and I like to test lots of Maria's things, so maybe I'm second best at that. But the reason I'm best in the world at local gov Drupal front end is because local gov Drupal is only really available in Ireland and the UK. So it's a small world, let's say. And then, so I'm not the best in the world at web. I'm not the best in the world at front end. I'm not the best in the world at Drupal. I'm not the best in the world at local gov Drupal. But I'm probably the best in the world at the front end of local gov Drupal. And it's a very small, what I call a niche of a niche of a niche. But when you get that down to that kind of a niche, then you can say to someone, look, you're not sponsoring the whole of local gov Drupal as for my development time. Pretty much everything I would do will be working on the front end of it only. But, that's a very important part of it. So basically, like I said in the last point here, become very well known. And that does take time. So like I said, you will not wake up tomorrow morning and start putting your hand up. Who wants to sponsor me? I've got to GitHub sponsors. You probably won't get any money. So how did this come about? Well, I left Anertech, and because I'm fairly well known in the Drupal community, not every company, but almost every company in Europe, the EU and the UK, and some slightly further afield, contacted me to have a chat about working with them. Big Blue Door were one of the first, and they asked me what do I want to do, and I said, well, things I want to do are local gov Drupal and consultancy, the things you saw on slide, whatever it was, slide 2 or 3. But I'd also like to maybe do some, I'm throwing around the idea of maybe somebody would like to sponsor my time as an open source developer. And they said, Mark, we've got lots of contracts. I actually should have passed this by Big Blue Door before I start speaking about them. And I'm going to get on to Agile Collective in a few minutes, Chris. But we've got lots of contracts with local gov Drupal, but we're very, very busy. And this happens to agencies all over the place. We're so busy, we don't have time to contribute. How about we sponsor you for 2 days a week? And then we will be contributing. So I'm not an employee, but let's say they basically have someone who works in Big Blue Door 2 days a week, working exclusively on local gov Drupal. Then Code Enigma, so again, like I said, Chris, sorry, I should have passed this by you before I start speaking, but Code Enigma sent me an email and said, hey, we've got a certain amount of money left in our, I don't know, what's the name of their fund? They've got a fund that they do good things with every year. You know, they plant trees and they do all these kind of nice things. And one of them was, well, we can give you the rest of that fund, Mark, if you want to work on Drupal core. So I said, that sounds pretty cool. I'll take your money. So I took their money, and that was pretty cool. I got into kind of what I did with that money in a few minutes, and what I do with Big Blue Door. But just like that was kind of 2 ones that fell into my lap, let's say. The third one then is with Finn and with Maria and with some others. We are paid to look after local gov Drupal itself as well. So, you know, attend meetings and triage issues and mentor other people. So of about, not a half a day, but, you know, about a half a day-ish a week. So that all adds up between Code Enigma at the time and the Big Blue Door and the local gov Drupal stuff. It's about 50 to 60% of my time is taken up as an open source developer. What's interesting then is when the Code Enigma money had run out, so there was a 10-week stipend there. When those 10 weeks were finished, I had an announcement saying, hey, I'm available for some sponsored Drupal core work. Who wants to sponsor the next 10 weeks? And not one person or agency sent an email or replied to anything. So that's what I'm saying about, you know, being good at something and putting a lot of work in. This is how hard it is. I was sure from the amount of blog posts I had written every week, here's what I did for Drupal core this week. And I tagged the company in it, and I tagged them on Twitter and Facebook, and, you know, they get some good kudos, I think, from it. I was sure across the whole world of Drupal, at least one agency would say, hi, Mark, can we at least chat about this? And then say, no, we're not interested. But no, not at all. And that's how hard it is to be an open source developer. It is that difficult. So there's a couple of models that you could follow if you do want to be an open source developer and you want to get paid for it. First off is the idea of patrons or open collective subscribers, you know, saying that I've got, you know, is it buy me a coffee or Ko-fi, whatever that linky thing is, I put on a website and hope that people give you some money. I've got a GitHub sponsors page and hope that people will sign up for different tiers of $5 a month and $10 a month and $50 a month and things like that. I think that is probably the hardest. You're asking people while they're reading your website or while they're looking at your GitHub page to give you money. The chances are they don't have their credit card out in the first place, and the chances are they're not there to give you money. They're there because they wanted to find out a solution to some issue that they had. I haven't tried that myself. I don't think I would try it because I know how hard it is to actually get money from people when you talk to them face to face. I think it will be harder when you're not talking to them face to face. The next then is the idea of maybe a daily rate. So I want X amount per day, and I will work 1 day per week or 2 days per week. That's kind of an easy enough one because it's easy for agencies or whatever to budget that we know that we pay Mark you know, £3,000 per month, or we pay Mark £1,000 per week or whatever it is, and we know then that we pay towards open source development £12,000 or £40,000, whatever it is, per year, and that kind of it helps when you're I don't know if you're writing tenders or if you're doing your goodwill community update at the end of the year that this is how much we spent on helping Drupal or giving back to Drupal. The third then is the idea of, and I like this one, project basis. So say for example, you use a search API module as an example, and it's not, I don't know if it is, I don't think it is actually, but say it's not stable just yet, and it's at RC4. But you've got a big client coming up, and the client will only allow you work with security vetted modules that have stable releases. Well, then you come to someone like myself or whoever, and you say, hey, how much is it going to cost to make this stable? and we triage the issues and we look at how we get things put into it. Then we come up with a rate of, that's going to be £7,500. And you say, great, so then you do that on a project basis, and when the project's finished, I walk away and you walk away, or you find something else that maybe you want me to work on. And the last one I think is the most interesting. This is the model that we use in local gov Drupal. It's called a community fund. And this is the idea that you find a problem that many people have, or you find a solution that many people need, and you get them all to share the bill. So if you look at, say, Ruash, you're working there on the publications for local gov Drupal. So we can have, instead of having PDFs on council websites, we have HTML pages. And now Ru's looking at the moment for an AI importer. So it'll import 500-page PDF and put all your headings into it and all this kind of stuff, and it's absolutely fantastic. And no council would say, well, there's £20,000 to build that. But you might get 10 councils that would say there's £2,000 each. I think that's a fantastic model. And then and Ru is looking for funding, so this isn't academic only. So if you want to sponsor something like that, please do. But it's a great idea that you can share the bill across a number of councils. I think the local gov Drupal model that we have is a great example of how we can have sustainable, funded, open source. Then you got to consider, what do you work on? So when it came to Big Blue Door, I asked them, what do you want me to work on? Presuming that, there's a big contract coming up and we want to maybe say that we funded this thing here, so we'll get that contract. And they said, we don't mind, Mark, whatever you want to work on. Oh, are you sure? Yeah. And not Agile Collective, Code Enigma. I said, Greg, what do you want me to work on? Is there anything in particular that would be beneficial to Code Enigma? And he said, no. Well, he said, no, I mean, there probably is, but he said, no, work on whatever you want to work on, Mark. I thought, okay. And then after about 6 weeks of working on this with Big Blue Door, I called him and said, lads, I've been working for you for 6 weeks. You've never asked me what am I working on. You've never asked me for a timesheet. You've never said, can I see some of the code? You don't seem to be putting my name down on tenders to say that you're sponsoring me. Is everything okay? And the simple answer was, you're the professional, Mark. We presume whatever you're doing is what local gov Drupal needs to have done. And I couldn't believe it. I just, okay, this is great. But think about that. Who decides what you work on? Think about then, is there a contract? Since I left Anertech, I have done my best, and I've been 100% successful so far in having no contracts with anybody. My general philosophy with it, and what I've said straight out to people, is I want to make it as easy as possible for you to walk away from me, and I want to make it as easy as possible for me to walk away from you. So at a second's notice, I could be told, hey, we don't have funding, Mark, you're gone. At the same time, at a second's notice, I could say, I don't like what you're doing here at the moment. I'm walking away. And I've had that with any of my clients that I have no contracts whatsoever, and long may that continue. I might fall foul of it at some other time, but at the moment, I'm happy enough with not having them. Think about exclusivity agreements. So I do have an agreement, and again, I have no contract, so it's a kind of an informal one, and I think I can break it a little bit, and I don't think that, they can probably break whatever loose agreement we have, but I do have a kind of an idea that I said, if I'm doing local gov Drupal work, I will tag Big Blue Door on it, and I will not do local gov Drupal work for another agency. So one or two other agencies did call me and say, hey, Mark, we'd like to sponsor some of your local gov Drupal work. We think it will be good for us in winning tenders, and I've had to say no to them for that, but yes to them for other things, such as, we have some modules that we think would be interesting for local gov Drupal. Would you be interested in taking them on and maintaining them and bringing them up to standard, writing the documentation, writing some tests, things like that, so we can add them to the local gov Drupal repository in GitHub? And that's fine. So I do have a small exclusivity agreement there, but it's a very small one. Think about the hours and the days that you're going to work. So my original idea was, I'm going to work Monday and Tuesdays on local gov Drupal. So 2 days a week, we say, for Big Blue Door. I'm going to work Wednesdays and Thursdays. I do a lot of work open code and with Finn. And I'm going to do Wednesdays and Thursdays with Finn. That's all perfect, except local gov Drupal meetings are on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So I had to spread it out a small bit. Finn's meetings are on Tuesday evenings, Wednesday, and bits and pieces come up here and there. So that's a very tricky one. But you do need to think about it, because the people you work for might want you Mondays and Tuesdays. But the open source community doesn't work Mondays and Tuesdays. They work, different days and different times, different time zones. And then the last one, think about, do you do some in-house work for your sponsor? So I'm sponsored to write open source code. I'm not sponsored to work for your clients. But for me, I think the correct thing to do is, here, if you're stuck and you need a hand for a little bit of time, yeah, I have no problem helping out. So I haven't done a huge amount of not open source, I haven't done a huge amount of local gov Drupal contributions in mid-January to, we say now, kind of thing, because I've been giving Big Blue Door a little bit of a hand. So I've been kind of working 1 day a week rather than 2 days a week, and been doing some of the work that's funded from local gov Drupal as opposed to Big Blue Door. Because just something come up and said, Mark, look, it's about 2 or 3 content types, 2 or 3 or maybe 5 or 6 paragraph types. Would you be able to team that for us? And I said yes. And I think that's kind of there's a nice quid pro quo that would come along with that. Day to day, this is, this is here on the, what side is that? Left or right? The right, my screen's the other way around here. On the right hand side, this screenshot, I put this up so I wouldn't forget to talk about it. One of the cool things about not having any kind of agreement on what I work on, and working on whatever you want to work on, is that I get to build things that no one's asked for. So this is a small little portal I built that just makes it handy for me to find where are the approved PRs, where are the PRs that need a review, where are the other, some kind of, you can see the hot links at the top, but under that the repository is 86. Every time I deploy this code base, it updates the number of repositories we have, the number of issues inside each repository, a link to those issues, and a link to the open PRs and things like that. And that kind of like nobody asked for it, but it's very beneficial and very handy when we have our meetings and we want to have a kind of a quick overview. So this will hopefully become more of a local gov Drupal dashboard that's available for anyone to look at and anyone to use. But day to day, my day is it's actually quite boring because I spend a lot of time clicking on the notifications tab on GitHub and saying, oh, another comment on that. Okay, let's have a look at that comment. And when I'm looking at the notifications, I'm reading the issues. And as you saw a second ago, we've got 86 repositories. So I've got a lot of issues that I can be reading over. So, and that takes, I mean, that really isn't very exciting, triaging through issues. And then there's testing PRs. So somebody else has written the code. Who likes testing things? You know, everyone likes to, oh, I'm building. This is great fun. But Mark, do you want to come over here now and test somebody else's work? Well, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So that's kind of the second part of my day. Then the third part of the day is meetings. Let's go to meetings. You know, everyone loves another meeting. So I spend a lot of time going to meetings. And then there's mentoring. So someone asks a question on Slack and I pop in and try to give them an answer, and often they realize that what I answered wasn't the question they were asking, or they realize there's a different question to be asked, and that can go on and on and on. So eventually, we get to write some code. So if you look at how much code I write in a week, you probably think, are you sure that took you 2 days, Mark? Well, it took me 2 days after I was finished triaging 86 repositories and maybe 200 notifications and 2 one-hour meetings and answering 10 different questions on Slack or wherever else, and then getting to start to code. So it's not all writing code, you know, that image you always see of some hacker's broken something, it's the hoodie is up and the head's down. For the most part, what you see here is basically being an open source developer. How is success measured? This is, I suppose, it's a little tricky, I guess. For me, I mean, I want to see local gov Drupal flourish. I want to see Drupal core flourish. So it's seeing patches getting submitted and getting reviewed and getting into the system. It's seeing new features in local gov Drupal. This week, I became the maintainer of the Drupal Stable 9 team. So pretty much every team in Drupal uses Stable 9 as its base team. So I'm now the maintainer of that. But again, that took work. Like I started my maintainership journey for that more than a year ago, which was going through every single Stable 9 issue and either fixing them, closing them, moving them to a different repository, or seeking more information. And now I have the Stable 9 issue queue down to 2 issues, and both of those are at nobody knows how to fix these things. Not even that it's a philosophical thing of it's fine, but do we put it here or do we put it there? And that's it. It doesn't matter which place it goes. So we're in that. We can talk about it for a long time or just leave them there. So I'm kind of leaving them at the moment because they've been like that for 6 years, and it's as simple as, do we move this file into this directory or that directory? So no one's going to be really happy about it. Another thing that I think was successful for me was Dries had a thing on LinkedIn a while back saying, hey, I love the way Mark Conroy keeps writing blog posts every week of this is my contribution to local gov Drupal this week. This is my contribution to Drupal core this week. And in those blog posts then, I tagged the individual sponsors. How is success measured for the sponsors? I guess best ask the sponsors. I'm not going to put you on the spot, guys, but I'm not going to speak for them. My guess is that that goes into your general the social good part of a tender when you're applying for it. That we sponsor this and we do other things. But what's in it for them in terms of like, why would we give you thousands of euros a year, Mark? What's in it for us? Well, I think the first thing is you're a good community member. Part of being an open source community is giving back to it. I think there was an audit done on Drupal 5 or 6 years ago of how much would it cost to build Drupal. And I think, and I could be wrong, so I might be adding on an extra zero or taking it away or something. I think 10 million or something was the price. To get something as scalable as that, to get something as secure as that, to get something that has the entity reference system, the taxonomy systems, the node systems, user access systems, the permission system, all of that, and have it tested as much as it's tested, and take whatever we are, 12, 13, 14 years building it at that stage, and 20 years, 21 years building it now, you're talking about 10 million. So, it's not a huge amount of money to sponsor someone for a day a week, or to give a donation of a couple of thousand a year, or to pay your dues to local gov Drupal as a subscriber, or to pay your dues to Drupal as a what do we call them? What are the verified members type thing? So good community membership. Number two, it's good for branding and marketing. I mean, to be able to say that this is what we do, and the other open source people look at that and say that's good. And you often see tenders coming out, for large tenders, for universities, for government and things like that stipulate you must be able to demonstrate that you are a member of the open source community. Well, you can do that if you're funding someone to work 40% of a week doing that. That's really good, I think, for your branding and your marketing. Just a general desire to give back, which I guess is a bit of the being good community members. And then ultimately it all comes down, I mean, it's a business decision. I presume it's all about really winning tenders and winning more work. If it gets to the stage that either we're not winning work and we can't afford you, Mark, I think I will be dropped. I've got a feeling that I'll be dropped before the CEO will take a pay cut of equal to what they're paying me. And again, not to speak for the companies, but I would expect that's what I would do with my company. If I would fire my wife before I take a pay cut. What do I give them? So this is my general spiel. If someone says, hey, Mark, look, we'd like to chat with you about this, what you give. Well, I've got a newsletter. So on a week that I do some Drupal contributions or do some local gov Drupal contributions, I keep a point by point of what I contributed this week, whether it's working on a new feature, whether it's triaging some issues, or whether it's closing out some issues, things like that. And in my newsletter then I will thank them as a sponsor. The top of the newsletter, the large image, that will be their logo. I will link to them in the newsletter, and I will have a link to my blog post. So that's the second one, the blog post with a recap of what I was doing that week. And the main image on that blog post will be that client. If I create videos based on, I do lots of kind of small YouTube videos of how to use different things in local gov Drupal, for example. And if I do that, I will put their slide at the front of it and say, thanks very much to Big Blue Door, thanks very much to Code Enigma for sponsoring my time to work on this. When I work on an issue on GitHub, or when I work on an issue on Drupal.org, I will leave a little note, say thanks to Big Blue Door for sponsoring my time to work on this, or thanks to Code Enigma for sponsoring my time to work on this. I try to just leave one comment, or that one tag only on one comment per issue. I don't want to pollute it too much. Sometimes I forget, so to help me remember, I wrote a browser extension, so now I can't click the save button at the bottom of a GitHub issue or the bottom of a Drupal.org issue, because it gets grayed out and blocked out, and it says, have you given credit in big red writing? And I have to click the yes, I have, and then I can click my save button. Although I don't use the mouse that much, I just hit Command Enter, and that works without having to click the have I given credit button. So I've tripped myself up a few times. I give commit credits on Drupal.org. So if anything I work on then it's the credit says by Mark Conroy for client Code Enigma for project local gov Drupal or something like that. So then their credits accumulate on Drupal.org, and then their standing in the Drupal.org marketplace will increase as the credits go up. Any projects that I work on Drupal.org, then if it was during their time, they get listed as a sponsor or supporter of that. So I wrote a module called Content Access by Pat. So you can say that a certain group of editors can edit everything that's inside a /news Pat. So the news landing page plus the news insider, things like that. So that's sponsored or supported by Big Blue Door, because it was part of their time when I was writing that. And I give at least one thanks on social media each week. I mean, that's very easy to say. Here's a link to my blog post. Thanks to whoever for sponsoring some of my time this week. So that's kind of what I give. But I think from that, there's a fair bit that you can kind of withdraw from it for yourself, for your own marketing, for your own branding, and for your own whatever goodness you can get out of that. So if you're wondering where to start as a sponsor, like so you want to start giving me money or somebody else money, DDev have a cool blog post called the Open Source Pledge. I don't know if the Open Source Pledge is a general open source thing or if it's an idea that they come up with themselves, but I thought it looks great. And that is give $2,000 per employee per year to open source, to the open source tools that you use. So if you're paying somebody, we'll say £60,000 a year as a salary, I would expect you're making at least £2,000 a year profit on that person. So you should be able to, per person, give 2,000, it says dollars here, so you have £2,000 per person. And what they say is do it on a pro rata basis. So if you use DDev every single day as your development environment, and you're working 6 hours a day or 7 hours a day, and 4.5, 5 of those hours a day have DDev open, well, that's probably, we'll say, 30% of your open source tool set. So give $700 per year per employee that uses it to DDev. And then if you also use Drupal for most of your websites, well, maybe that's half of the pledge. So I'll give 1,000 to Drupal. So you can figure out yourselves what open source tools do we use, what's the pro rata of each tool, and give that money then to those. So at the moment, we're going to miss a mortgage next month again, Ruth. I'm giving $600 per year to DDev. And I think it's £500 per year to, I'm going to stop now. And then we go through the rest of that pro rata. So who's looking for sponsorship? Well, DDev are, and I'm guessing lots of us use it. So, help them out. I would expect that Lando and Doxel and whoever else we have for our local development environments probably wouldn't say no to you if you wanted to give them money, but DDev certainly are, and I think they're doing great work. Nod, so that's Theodore Bayadala, French guy. He has on his website a Drupal contribution product, and if you sponsor him, it's a certain amount per month. Every single thing that he commits to Drupal core, and he's a Drupal core committer, not just a Drupal core maintainer, he will credit your company, and I think that's a pretty good way to build yourself up on the marketplace. The charts module, I was chatting to the chaps from Charts last week. Some of them worked with Acquia, and Acquia's let off a number of people recently. So they're looking to try to fund Charts, and if you're using Charts in a big way, maybe give some money towards them, and they'll be able to kind of work on that as an open source initiative. Webform is basically Jacob Rockowitz on his own, working I don't know how many hours, but he is an absolute paragon of how dedicated someone can be to open source. I think he would be great to give some money to if he could. The IXP initiative, that's Carlos Ospina I think he's in Colombia. This is to get people into Drupal that don't know Drupal yet. It's the inexperienced initiative, IXP, so people who haven't used Drupal yet. How do we get more of those people? Because we've got lots of senior developers and lead developers and architects. We've got a decent amount of middle-level developers. We don't have very many junior developers and interns. So this is to try to fix that, or else we're going to all grow up, retire, and there'll be nobody left to maintain our projects. The Gin team, you're probably using that as your back-end admin team. The ECA event condition action module, I haven't used it, but I know I've looked at it loads of times, and I keep wanting to use it. Again, they're looking for money. The AI module, James, is around here somewhere. Probably in the next room, there's a good talk going on in there. They're looking for money. Chicken, I mentioned Drew here beside me. They want to finish off this PDF import. It's actually quite close. They need a couple of thousand more. So if anyone could start handing some money that direction, that would be really appreciated. And then me, if anyone wants to talk about more open source development or how you could sponsor some work, I'm happy to chat. I think that's the end of the talk. It is. Is there any questions? Tony.
Yeah, you had a slide day to day.
Yep.
Which I can relate very well to this, where your day doesn't fit into a neat box.
Yep.
And you're jumping around different meetings, and you're not working on code necessarily. Sometimes I can find that disheartening, where the end product of what I'm doing with my time, I can't really see it.
Yep.
How do you kind of stay motivated? What strategies do you have to?
I actually don't know how I stay motivated, because I do wake up some mornings and go, I don't feel like I did work yesterday. I don't have the tangible lines of code to show it. And that's like when I said my day is quite boring. Like, I wasn't joking about that part of it. It can be looking at this, or even maybe I'm doing it the wrong way around. Maybe I should start off writing code in the morning and finish triaging issues in the evening. But yeah, often, I look at my day and say, am I sure I can put in a full day on this invoice? Because this doesn't feel like I've done a day's work. And it's not that I wasn't at the computer all day. It's not that I didn't attend meetings. It's not that my inbox on my notifications hasn't gotten down to zero. There are things done, but yeah, I don't know how I don't have an answer for that. If anyone knows how this, Paul, you do? Paul, do you mind just a little louder, because we've got a... What's it? Oh, sorry.
This one, you can throw it. It's fun.
Oh, it's in that. Sorry, Paul, if you don't mind, Finn was interrupting me there. Can you go again?
In my opinion, the answer to that question of like looking at like progress and like feeling motivated is like the day-to-day is chaotic, but on a higher level, like if you've got your objectives and whatnot at the higher level, like mapped out properly, judging it against that over a higher level timeline than a day, looking at weeks, looking at sprints, that kind of level, then you can like properly gauge, am I actually making progress? Because yeah, days are chaotic, especially in dev or product management. Super noisy.
Thanks, Paul. There was some at the back of the question.
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for your talk. It's really interesting.
Thank you.
You talked about your difficulties finding sponsorship.
Yep.
And I'm sure it is difficult. It's not something I relate to. But to what degree do you think the market's just been a bit difficult for the last couple of years? And to what degree do you think it's just always going to be like that? I speak to a couple of people and they say, the market's been difficult for finding people work for a while, or unpredictable, or up and down.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone keeps saying the market's very difficult at the moment. I don't find it difficult for some reason. I've got a little bit more work at the moment than I need to have. And I don't know if I'm lucky, or maybe because I'm well known in the Drupal community, it's a bit easier for me to find work than it is for other people to find work. I honestly can't answer the question, I suppose, because I spent all my last years with Anertech, and they're a very good company and they're always very busy, so we didn't have that, oh no, where are we going to look next for our work? So I don't know if I was sheltered from it, or just when you work with a good company, it's a bit easier to get work. So
Well, maybe it's just rumor. I mean, I have work, so
yeah.
it's just something people say, isn't it? Another question, if that's okay.
Yep.
You said be the best in the world or something, which is great advice. I guess just more kind of general question. How did you find your niche within a niche within a niche? How did you get the best at something? Because you're a journey like that.
I didn't go to college to study computer science. I studied philosophy and English and became a teacher. So that meant software development was going to be very hard. I was able to click on a computer and point around in the UI and things like that, like using, say, Figma, that type of tool. Now, this Dreamweaver was called back in 2004, whenever that was, 1999 actually, and that was okay. So I became a website maker, let's say, rather than a web developer. And then I figured out, oh, there's these little numbers, and they make what's called a hex code, and that makes colors in CSS. So CSS became kind of something. So my niche was more that this is the only thing I could do, as opposed to I'm going to try to be a really good front-end developer. I think I've gotten to the stage now where I actually am a really good front-end developer, and I'm happy that I know HTML very well and CSS very well and JavaScript very well and other frameworks very well, and I can do lots of back-end code in that now. But getting to that, it really was, what can I actually do? And let's just focus on getting better and better at that, rather than, if I had gone to college and studied computer science, I'd probably know more about design patterns. I'd probably know more about caching strategies and systems and things like that. At the moment, I've got, I understand the vocabulary as opposed to how to implement these things. So for me, it was more, like when someone says, I want to write a novel, what am I going to write about? Well, write about what you know about. And that was basically, I know this bit, and I'll focus on this bit. And now I'm focusing more and more and more on it. And I don't get any way embarrassed to say that I'm a really good front-end developer. If you want a really good front-end developer, come and talk to me. I'm confident about that. I'm not arrogant about that. If you want a really good back-end developer, don't come talk to me. Or if you want a really good back-end developer, come talk to me and I'll find a really good back-end developer for you. Yep.
Do you know how much of the open source code will be funded versus completely freely contributed by the contributors?
For Drupal or for local of Drupal?
For Drupal as an example, but yeah, it's an open question. Like how much of the work is done, let's say, freely by
developers? But with local of Drupal, I don't want to speak for other local Drupal developers, but I would say 0%. I know I don't. If someone doesn't pay me, I'm not working on it. I might, chip in a bit here and there, but in general, the days I'm not funded or weeks I'm not funded, I'm not working on it. And you can see the issue queue gets bigger and bigger. Within Drupal, there are people doing it as a hobby, and when I started, I did it as a hobby, and I worked long into evenings, I worked weekends because I was enjoying it. I still think, given that Drupal is now much more in the enterprise and much more from organizations and agencies and large government departments and things, I'd say most of it is funded by somebody. As in, I would guess 90% or more is probably funded by somebody. I don't think there's that many people who just want to write some code and the first thing to start writing is Drupal. It's not really the gateway drug, let's say, that it was back in 2006 or 2007. So I'd say most of it is funded somewhere. I'm just waiting for my birthday cake to arrive now. I think we're done. Thank you.